This is St. Louis Cardinals baseball, and tonight from New York, game number 3 of the 4-game series between the St. Louis Cardinals and the New York Mets. He's back in the lineup tonight, and what a series this has been. The ups and downs for Randal Grichuk. Game 1, 0 for 6, 5 strikeouts. Mike Matheny puts him back in there last night. He comes through. 3 for 5. Those 3 hits, all extra base hits. He also mixed in 3 ribbies as well. And with Tim McCarver, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Delighted to have you with us for Cardinals baseball here tonight. Randal Grichuk, interesting series back in there tonight.
You know, if Randal Grichuk does not do anything for the rest of his career, he can say that for 2 nights in New York, so goes Randal Grichuk, so go the Cardinals. 5 strikeouts the night before last, and then last night 2 doubles and a triple, and dominated the game.
I think this is going to be a fun matchup here in game number 3. The veteran who's nearly 42, Bartolo Colon, against the youngster Carlos Martinez. Martinez, Colon, Mets and Cardinals coming up. A devastating injury. The ace of the staff, Adam Wainwright, injured, done for the year. Since then, Mike Matheny's club has gone 14-9. And tomorrow they get a little healthier. On the eve of his first start in 2015, Jaime Garcia will go in game number 4. First things first, it's game 3. And that means it's Carlos Martinez. First pitch comes your way next. Budweiser, still brewed the hard way. This Bud's for you. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And visit your local Mid-America Chevy dealers for great prices on our all-new 2015 vehicles today. It is chilly. And Old Glory is waving briskly in the air. It is a windy night here in New York. Colton Wong, Matt Carpenter, Matt Holliday here in the first, followed by Adams, Peralta, Molina, then Hayward, Grichuk, and Martinez. The starting 9 for St. Louis to face Bartolo Colon. Bartolo wears number 40. He is 41 years of age. He's 6-2.
6-2, and a guy with the perpetual smile on his face. What a sense of humor. That's his best pitch to left-handed batters, that tailing fastball. You may remember Greg Maddux, they call it the arms-up fastball to left-handers.
0-2 pitch to Wong. You can see where left-handers would give up on that pitch.
That's right.
Tails right back in the zone, and all of a sudden it's a strike. The 1-2 pitch, and Wong singles into center field.
Well, that's a good piece of hitting right there by Colton Wong, protecting outside and went away.
Behind Colon tonight, Kadire, Lagares, and Granderson. Campbell, Flores, Murphy, and Duda along the infield. Kevin Plawicki is behind the plate. That's your Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers defense. Here's Matt Carpenter. Leads a club in RBIs, runs scored, in doubles, multi-hit games. Did not play last night, but what a season he has had already. So I guess the question is, Tim, for fans at home, they're wondering, how is Bartolo Colon getting people out? How is he doing this at the age of 41?
He's walked 1.
That helps.
He's walked 1 and struck out 47 on the season. A 47-1 shot.
Isn't that amazing?
It really is.
So coming into play tonight, he had faced 207 batters this year. Walked 1. 51 in the third, 1 walk, 42 strikeouts. As a matter of fact, he's gone 45 and a third consecutive without a walk. And the all-time record for the Mets is Brett Saberhagen in 1994, 47 and 2/3. So he could make history tonight.
Yeah, I said 47 strikeouts, 42 strikeouts, but 42-1, pretty good odds.
You bet. That's that pitch again that starts out basically at the hip of a left-handed hitter. Tails back in.
Starts out as a ball and has late movement that tails back over the inside corner. Finger pressure. That's the story of Bartolo Colon at this time in his career. Same pitch.
You look at him, he's a big man, and that's putting it kindly. Dan Worthen, the pitching coach of the Mets, as Wong gets back in safely. I was talking with him in spring training, and I said, who does he remind you of in terms of fielding? Because he can really field his position well.
Yes.
And he
Great
said,
athlete.
Yeah. He said there was 2 guys, Rick Russell and David Wells. Bigger guys that wound up being pretty good athletes on the mound. Back to first goes Wong, and the Hyundai pitch arsenal, nothing fancy about it with Bartolo Colon.
Speaking with Dan Worthen, the pitching coach for the Mets, telling us that about 20% off-speed stuff. Everything else, 3 types of fastballs. Cutter, sinker, and that thing to left-handed batters that neutralizes them, that tailing fastball.
It's the new category in the pitch arsenal, the thing. There's a base hit into right field for Holiday. He now has reached base in 38 straight games to start the year. Missouri Lottery Fox Track says Holiday singles into right field. So 2 base hits, and it brings in Adams.
Bartolo Colon is, as we said, a very, very funny man, a perpetual smile on his face. I'm sure he was characterized as Chris Farley, that character he used to have, Matt Foley. You remember?
I love that character.
The motivational speaker.
A van down by the river.
I live in a van down by the river.
That's right.
Watch Colton Wong. No chance for him to go to third, but he missed his second base. He stepped over it. Had Granderson dropped the ball, then Wong couldn't have gone to third base unless he started over again.
Here's the 0-1. David Spade was a part of that skit on Saturday Night Live, and he can't stop laughing during it. It is classic.
I live in a van down by the river. Oh, gosh.
0-2 the count. Runners at first and second. Outfield is straight away. Adams is swing and a miss, and he strikes out the first tonight for Bartolo Colon. Cardinals in game 1 struck out 18 times. Last night, just 3 total. As they got to Jonathan Neese. Gave up a career-high 10 runs. Dylan G is coming back shortly for the Mets, so they're going to have a decision to make in their rotation. Here's Peralta, leads the club in home runs with 6.
Mets struck out 18 times on Monday night. And last Wednesday in Cleveland against Corey Kluber, They struck out 18 times against him in 8 innings. 6 days apart over a 6-game period. 2 18 strikeout games for the Cardinals.
Well hit into center. Lagares back and over his head. And it's a ground rule double. And that benefits the Mets as Holiday will be put back to third base. He would have scored easily. Regardless, the RBI for Johnny Peralta, number 21, to drive in Colton Wong, and it's 1-0 here at the top of the first.
Well, that's certainly an accurate point. Had that ball hit the fence anywhere, regardless of where it caroms, Holiday scores easily. Peralta really gets into this fastball away. I mean, hammered. And Lagares can't catch up to it. And unfortunately for the Cardinals, it bounces over the fence for a ground rule double.
Here's Molina. The first pitch is taken for a ball. Colon will turn 42 on May 24th. Third pitcher 40 or older to start a season winning 6 of his first 7 games in the history of baseball. Last to do it was Roger Clemens in 2004, and then Babe Adams in 1923.
Wow.
The 2-0 pitch. Chopped foul. Colon signed during the winter meetings of 2013 a 2-year $20 million deal. And people around baseball were thinking Sandy Alderson is crazy for doing that. And it's paid off.
I'll say. Only 2 6-game winners in the National League. Michael Wacha, who won his 6th last night, and Bartolo Colon.
Wacha now 6-0. The 2-1 pitch. In the air. Left field. Kadire near the line. And the wind takes that into the seats. 2-2 the count with 2 outs and 2 runners on. Already a 1-0 lead. The story of last night, too, was runners in scoring position. The Cardinals 6 for 14. Game 1, they were 0 for 11. Here's a look at Michael Wacha. The 2-2. Fly ball again. Granderson, the right fielder, is there and puts it away for the out. Johnny Peralta, 2 out. RBI double, 1-0 St. Louis after a half inning. One nothing St. Louis as we turn to our Toyota keys to the game.
Well, for Carlos Martinez, in my view, he's got to throw the fastball more. Carlos has been working on that changeup the past 2 winters with Pedro Martinez. And sometimes when young pitchers, Dan, when they work on a pitch, they have a tendency, particularly with the changeup, to throw it too often and not get back to what made them who they are and what got them to the big leagues. Derek Lilliquist wanting Carlos not to throw the changeup too often.
Curtis Granderson will lead it off, followed by Eric Campbell and Lucas Duda for Terry Collins' club. Michael Kadire bats cleanup. Then Daniel Murphy leads their club in RBIs. Wilmer Flores leads the club in home runs. Juan Lagares, Kevin Plawicki, and Bartolo Colon, the pitcher, batting ninth. First pitch by Martinez. A strike with the fastball. A load of talent. Can he put it all together in the starting rotation? The changeup has been a good pitch, effective for him against lefties.
Yes.
But you're right, not seeing the fastball quite as much.
That's what that phrase, "establish the fastball," means.
There's a 1-2 pitch to Granderson. Could be a very aggressive hitter at the plate. He now has taken the first pitch in his last 34 plate appearances. They've asked him to try to go deeper into counts. So there's the breaking ball and a strikeout to start the game for Martinez.
So 4 fastballs and the breaking ball to get Granderson.
Look at the Hyundai pitch arsenal: fastball, curve, and changeup for Carlos. Eric Campbell hitting .224, 1 home run and 7 RBIs. Martinez has been much more effective against right-handed batters than lefties. Righties hitting .250 in his young career. The lefties .291.
Well, the whole thing is to stay ahead, too, falling behind Eric Campbell.
And Tim, for the most part, he's been working from the stretch because of walks. He doesn't have those efficient 1, 2, 3 innings. Matter of fact, he's only had 8 of 42 innings he's pitched have been retiring the side in order. That's well hit out to left. Holiday spun around, but with room, and he's got it. Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Defense behind Martinez with Holiday in left, Grichuk in center, Jason Hayward is in right. Carpenter, Peralta, Wong, and Adams on the infield, Molina behind the plate. Again presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. That's why that baseball stayed in the ballpark. Wind is blowing in and towards right. Lucas Duda. First pitch hit out of play. Duda was drafted in the 7th round of 2007, 243rd overall out of USC. Steve Levitt was the area scout that found him in Southern California. And there were many at the time, Tim, that questioned the Mets in drafting Duda that high. He was not projected to go in that round. Much deeper into the draft. And he said the reason that he did it and really pushed hard for it was that he saw him hit with wooden bats in the fall. He said he was the one guy watching hitting with a wooden bat that actually drove the ball. You know, college kids, they don't do that.
Great story.
Yeah.
Wow.
The 2-1. And a ground ball hit to the right side. Look at this. Wong with the shift, throws it away. Very tough play on the line and right. And a base hit for Lucas Duda.
Colton Wong made a great play catching the ball, but could have set his feet and thrown Duda out. Duda is not a fast runner, and Colton had more time than he thought. But a great play to get to it, and now throws it too quickly. But he had time to set his feet and get Duda, and I think it'll go as a base hit. Tough play.
And it does. The official ruling, a base hit for Duda. Extends the inning to Michael Kadire. Kadire with a line drive into right, and there's Hayward positioned perfectly. Mets strand a runner. We played an inning from Citi Field in New York. 1-0 St. Louis. All right, guys, thanks. Here's Jason Hayward. Game-tying RBI to send us into extra innings. The first game of this series. Well, that baseball really moves what you were talking about, Tim, on these lefties.
Yeah, and the Mets are clear about how they're going to pitch Jason Hayward, and that's inside. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to stay inside with every pitch. But generally speaking, at every at bat, that's the way they plan to get him out.
Saw that in game one. That's nasty right there. You can understand why Hayward or these left-handed hitters give up on that pitch.
Yes.
The 2-2. Up the middle and a base hit for Hayward.
See, 4 pitches inside, and the one they throw away, Hayward singles up the middle. John Mabry loves that. Hit the ball back up the middle, particularly when you struggle in ground balls to second base like Hayward has for the Cardinals so far this year. Good hitting.
Well, one of the youngest managers in the game, Mike Matheny, Terry Collins. One of the oldest, if not the oldest, in the game today. Terry Collins was actually the manager with the Angels at the time, back in 1997, when Bartolo Colon made his debut at the Cleveland Indians. Here's Randall Grichuk.
Well, I think the one thing about Terry Collins is it's nice to see that he may have a chance to reap the rewards of his patience in the 4+ years he's been the manager of the Mets. That does not always happen with major league managers. Sometimes managers just prepare the players that they have for the next guy who comes in. And it's unfair in that regard, but that's the way it is.
0-2 pitch to Randal Grichuk. Popped up to the right side. Duda in foul territory, puts it away for the out. It's been a rebuild project and waiting for pitchers like Syndergaard and Matt Harvey and some of the others to get to this level. Now they're here.
Yeah.
And you would think Terry Collins would have the shot to see it through.
I would think so.
Barring a major collapse. But you wouldn't think with their pitching as good as it is that goes into a prolonged slump. Even though their offense isn't where it needs to be, their pitching is. They start play tonight tied with Washington, both at 23 and 17. The Cardinals a 4.5 game lead over the Chicago Cubs. Martinez with 2 sacrifices this year, and there's strike 1. Cardinals really have put together a winning formula so far. 10 games above 500 at home, and you have to be able to win within your division. The Cardinals are 10 games above 500 in the Central.
Throughout the Cardinals' winning ways, they have always handled their division opponents very well.
Yes, they have. 0-2.
Carlos is not getting the bat out front. If you keep the bat in foul territory, you'll bunt foul balls. Simple formula. Catch the ball with the bat when you bunt.
Swinging this time and strikes out. Colon with his second strikeout tonight, and we're back to the top of the lineup and Colton Wong. Wong started the game with a base hit to center and scored on the RBI double with 2 outs in the top of the first from Peralta. Part of the formula for the Mets, it's not just Colon, but the rest of the staff in terms of walks. They've issued 85. 12 have been intentional, and that's pushed foul. And since the mound was lowered, and that was in 1969, only the Twins in 05 and 06 issued fewer walks than what the Mets have done this season. That's a winning formula, too.
Mets have played as many games as the number on Colon's shirt, 40.
One ball, one strike. Bartolo Colon, the opening day starter for the Mets. Terry Collins took some heat with that, not going with Matt Harvey. As Wong skies one into right. Granderson over near the line and makes the catch. Cardinals strand a runner. They've stranded 3 thus far. Midway through 2, it's 1-0. in the home half of the second as we check in with Pat Paris.
Dan, I hope you saw the pregame show. Hope all Cardinal fans are able to tonight. Randy Choate joined me live to talk more about that at bat last night in the ninth inning. Of course, he had a successful eighth inning pitching, and then Mike Matheny asked him to go ahead and bat third, and he was able to draw a walk. He said his biggest fear was being hit by a pitch. He was able to work the count. He was able to draw the walk. So the first time he's ever reached base in a Major League Baseball game. He had been 0 for 5 in his previous 5 plate appearances, and his last plate appearance was 11 years ago, 2004. And as you can imagine, his phone blew up with texts, and it was a lot of fun for the Cardinals last night to see him get the job done.
Well, first of all, Pat, you hope we saw the pregame. We never miss a second of the pregame.
Not a word.
No.
And I appreciate that like you wouldn't believe, and I figured you did, but I really meant it for the fans at home. I hope they caught it. You know, Randy Choate at age 39 is a great story anyway.
Murphy into center field, and the catch made by Grichuk. Not an easy play with the wind and a fly ball that's hit to the deepest part of the park.
Wind helping that ball as it did Peralta's ball in the first inning. Then the ball hit by Eric Campbell being held in the ballpark. That was the second out of the game for the Mets. The ball hit to Holiday. So clearly the wind is blowing out to right field and right center.
So, Pat, we definitely do not miss any second of the pregame show.
And we do really appreciate that. But, you know, Randy Choate, at 39 years old, he's got the job to do as the lefty specialist. Last night he goes a whole inning. But, you know, this is a guy, and like all those bullpen guys, they rally around each other. They rarely get an opportunity, although they do ask Mike Matheny all the time if they could hit. And he was able to lobby, I guess, last night and get an at-bat.
Wilmer Flores at the plate, shortstop. He's hitting .248 overall, and Randy got a kick out of it, didn't he, Tim?
Yes, he did.
Late with that swing, 2-2.
Yeah, helping Martinez out right there. Should be 3-1 on the count instead of 2-2. That ball was way out of the strike zone.
Ouch. What's interesting about Flores is that here he is, the starting shortstop for a first place team. And back in 2011, after the season ended, they wanted him to stop playing the position because he had committed so many errors and was not getting better defensively. He's already committed 9 this year. They moved him back to shortstop, though, because they don't have any depth at that position in the organization. That's popped up, so Peralta puts it away. More on Randy Choate, the 17th longest span between plate appearances since 1914. Had to run the bases. The reaction of the teammates.
Yeah, we told Randy before the game, you know, last night a laugher with the Cardinals winning 10-2. And there were a lot of guys laughing when that happened.
Were they ever?
True to form.
It's good to see, though.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Sometimes you need that kind of game and that kind of situation to break up what is the monotony of a long season. Lagar is hit by the pitch. Breaking ball that got away from Carlos.
I mean, when you think about Martinez, this ball misses by about 3 yards. Molina was set up outside. He's thrown 3 fastballs like that in this game. I mean, we know it's an electric arm, but it's got to be funneled more into the strike zone. And that's a key word for Carlos. You can't miss that far.
So 2 outs. Kevin Plawecki, the catcher, with a runner at first.
You know, umpires will give a pitcher, you know, a little off the plate. not quite, right below the knees, right at the letters. You know, when your pitches are that far out of the strike zone, you rarely get the close pitches.
Umpires just don't give in on those. Seen Carlos since 2013 when he worked out of the bullpen and at times was dominant. Now in the rotation as that ball scoots away from Adams, but not far enough for Lagares to advance. I'm just curious. I'm going to throw this at you. Is he better suited, Carlos Martinez, in your opinion, with his stuff as a bullpen, 8th inning, key couple of innings, whatever the case may be, in that role, or is he better suited growing into being a starter in this rotation?
I think the latter, a starter in this rotation. His stuff's too good.
Hit the third, and they get Lagares by a step. So we played 2. 1-0 Cardinals from Citi Field. $0.50 at your local on the run. You earned it. Chilly night, Citi Field in New York. It's Carpenter and Holiday coming up for St. Louis, along with Matt Adams. Cardinals, one of those teams, the fan base travels so well around the country. Number of Cardinal fans here tonight in New York.
What an iconic brand name. I guess that's redundant, brand name, but what an iconic brand.
The Yankees in the American League, the Cardinals in the National League. And that's a base hit into right. So Matt Carpenter, his first hit in this series, and he's 1 for 2.
One thing about that pitch, he tried to tail it in off the plate and get it inside the Carpenter, but it was down to where Matt could handle it. Third inning in a row, the Cardinals have their first base runner on. 5 out of the first 6 last night. It's a good sign.
Holiday is single to right, first time up. Find it interesting that you have Matt Carpenter with extreme fatigue, misses a series. You have Matt Holiday at the age of 35, never misses a game. You know, he just keeps himself in tremendous condition. And there's a base hit into left. And I bring it up because he's only the second player 35 or older to get on base with a streak of 38 to start a season. Second player in the history of the game 35 or older to do that. So he's closing in on Pujols, who has the all-time record of 42, and now Holiday at 38.
He's doubled up tonight. He's been on base twice.
He's having a great year.
He really is. And I think I go back to that comment that you made about 2 weeks ago, where you said Matt told you in spring training that the most important thing for him this year was to get off to a good start. He didn't last year, but boy, has he ever this year.
Here's Adams and a fly ball out to left, slicing to Kadire. Makes the catch, and Carpenter still at the bag at second. Holiday back to the bag at first. Carpenter was really in between there on what he wanted to do.
Well, we saw what happened to Jason Hayward on that ball on Saturday with him on second base and 1 out. And he went back to tag up and ended up on a double, being at third base, going from second to third. I'm sure that was in Matt's mind. But the way, as the play ended up, Kadire caught the ball going back, so maybe Matt could have tagged up, but he was too far halfway to get back and tag up and go to third.
Here's Johnny Peralta. Runners at first and second, and 1 out. A ground rule double to center, first time up, and picked up RBI number 21. And Tim, maybe you can go through the rule of thumb on this type of play for fans at home.
Well, fly ball to left field, you can't go back and tag up, because if he drops the ball, particularly if he drops it in front of him, you're not going to score.
Right.
Outs, of course, matter, but with nobody out. Well, there was 1 out when Hayward did it on Saturday, and Cardinal fans will keep going back to that. And it was a base running blunder. Ball to right center field's a lot more difficult, regardless of the outs.
1 ball, 2 strikes on Peralta.
See, the thing about base running is you can't practice it before a game. You can't go. How many teams ever go out and take extra base running? You just don't do that. Play 162 games in 181 days.
Ground ball to short. Flores up with it and out at second base. Holiday had to make sure from Bill Miller, the crew chief, that he was called out. And Mike Matheny, as he does in these situations, to the top step of the dugout to make sure they have the call correct or potentially to challenge.
That's a funny sight right there. That is a post-review shot with Matt Holliday. He was out.
He sure was.
Matt Holliday standing behind Matt Carpenter.
You know, in football with some of these reviews, you get the big build up to the review and the call and the challenge. Baseball, it's anticlimactic. You know, I mean, you sit there and you go out and you have a great double play that ends an inning, the crowd's into it, and everybody, they put on the brakes. Hold on. Inning's not over. People just stand around and you watch an umpire look at a screen. Yeah, it just doesn't have a flow to it.
No, that's a key word. It's the first breaking ball Colon has thrown in the game.
Molina fly out back in the first to right field. Average now at .299. Yadi, Benji, Jose all have won world championships. Molina growing up primarily a third baseman. And because of his arm, his dad eventually moved him to behind the plate. And he was telling us the other day he believes, truly believes, he could play third base or first base at this level. One of these days it may happen at first base. As he gets older, he's 32 now. But so valuable defensively to this club.
Oh, yeah. Has been for 11 years.
Mm-hmm. Two is fouled back. Ground ball to second. There's Murphy and a flip to the shortstop, Wilmer Flores. Cardinals strand 2. They've stranded 5 so far through 3. Martinez and Bartolo Colon looking at the differences in ages and starts, wins, strikeouts. Colon, by the way, 18 years, 120 days older than Carlos Martinez. Carlos will turn 24 on September 21st. As a matter of fact, the only other pitcher that Colon has started against who is 18 years younger than him, Seattle's Taijuan Walker, and that was last year on July 23rd. It's a pretty amazing story to see Colon still doing what he's doing. And by the way,
lives in a van down by the river.
And these are the best at bats you'll see all year too. I love watching these
Hilarious.
at bats. Yep. Helmet flies off, takes a healthy cut. Then you get to watch him run. So this is Chris Farley at the plate, is what you're telling me.
It's Chris Farley at the plate. I'll tell you, Bartolo is listed at 285, and he does not weigh 285. It's north of there.
He's running. Oh, he's got to have an infield hit. Are you kidding me? An infield hit for Bartolo Colon. He was just waiting to be thrown out. And the throw never came.
That's the longest I've ever seen between a fielded ball and a safe call at first. I think Yadier Molina. Now looks, he even looks back at Molina saying, catch the ball, I'm out, right? But he wasn't.
So from Randy Choate last night to this.
And Molina fielding the ball.
Base hit into right. Well, Cologne's got to be at third, Tim.
Now, Molina's upset at himself, too. You don't see Yadi Molina do that. Bartolo Colon carrying those gloves because he saw somebody else do it.
His second career infield hit. You've got to be kidding me.
Might take a little bit out.
Here is Eric Campbell. It wouldn't surprise me if they overturned it. You could see an error on Molina, which would be his third, but we'll have to wait and see.
I agree with you, by the way. The reason Terry Collins isn't bunting here, you can't bunt Colon to go to third base.
Good breaking ball, 1-1. Campbell flied to left first time up. Can he score on a base hit?
No. Not unless it's an extra base hit.
Well, you're right, Tim. Molina really upset with himself after that play.
Yeah.
Here's a 1-2 pitch. Breaking ball and a strikeout. Got him looking, and the second strikeout for Carlos Martinez.
That's that backup slider. Supposed to be away. You could see Molina setting up outside. Came back to his left. And that ball right down the pipe, but it really fools the right-handed batter.
Duda is 1 for 1. Runners at first and second. The shift on here for Duda. Peralta still on the shortstop side of the bag to keep the runner somewhat close, and that's Colon. But normally, nobody on. The Cardinals have shifted in a big way against Lucas Duda in this series. There's a base hit into center field. Colon will stop at third. And the bases are loaded for New York.
So Randall Grichuk double clutch in center field. That was odd. I don't know why Randall did that. You get it back as quickly as possible.
8 grand slams in his career. Michael Kadire. And this year, 3 for 3 with the bases loaded. Now the ruling is an error on Molina on the Colon play, so his third error this year. Martinez would love the double play. Bases loaded, 1 out.
Good play, Molina. Backhanded short hop. Quick hands. Martinez with 4 wild pitches on the year. Something to look for.
One into center field. Grichuk, a diving catch, makes the play, and Colon is still standing at third. The second diving catch by Grichuk in this series.
Grichuk knew he could take a chance because Colon was at third. Colon moving off the bag toward home when he should have gone back, but you can't blame him. He's not a base runner. Great play by Grichuk. Once Colon goes forward, he doesn't know what to do. I'll tell you, that's a tough play for a good base runner. You know, knowing whether you get back to tag or go forward. But I think because he caught the ball with the dive, you go back to tag up, try to score.
Huge play already in this game. Now Daniel Murphy flied out to center. There's a strike tailing away at 95 from Carlos Martinez. Yeah, Grichuk has done some things in this series that have caught your eye. The strikeouts, that's the negative. And then 3 extra base hits, 2 diving catches. Made a good play early on, too, on a fly ball that was deep. And that was Murphy who was at the plate then. The Mets hit under 200 with the bases loaded a year ago. They've been terrific in this spot this year. Above 300.
That's unusual with a team that has so many of their regular players batting below 250.
Here's a 1-2. Put in play by Murphy. Ground ball and Carpenter has, and Carlos Martinez gets out of the jam with a little help from Randall Grichuk. And Colon left stranded. The diving catch in center field. Colon caught in no man's land. St. Louis still on top. Ted Simmons, Kurt Flood, Bob Forrest, George Kissel all being inducted. This is presented by Edward Jones, and that'll happen in August. That's something that I think that the fans have really enjoyed. The first year, you go down to the ballpark, you go across the street, Ballpark Village, and the Hall of Fame Museum. See the great memorabilia.
See the great careers those guys
It's amazing.
had. Mostly as Cardinals. Ted Simmons going to Milwaukee and was part of that pennant-winning team in 1982. Lost to the Cardinals in the World Series.
1-0 pitch.
I've told you this before, Dan. When I came back to the Cardinals in 1973, Ted Simmons was the regular catcher with about 610 plate appearances that year, and he hit at least 400 balls on the button.
Is that right?
Yes. I had never seen anybody. I played against Joe Torre when he was the MVP, hit 363 and 71. But I'd never seen anybody make solid contact with the ball like Ted Simmons did in 1973.
2-2 on Hayward. The question then I have for you, if Ted Simmons played in New York or Chicago, L.A., is he in the Hall of Fame?
No, in New York, in a minute.
Yeah.
In a second. In L.A., probably. In Chicago, I think it's the same as in St. Louis, Milwaukee. New York, no doubt about it.
Bartolo Colon has gone to a full count on only 10 batters this year. 10. Full count pitch is a foul ball to Jason Hayward, who singled to center first time up. I mean, Tim, 27 of his pitches, 27%, coming into this start have been called balls. That's it. That's incredible.
It really is.
Three-2 to Hayward. Hayward drives it into deep right center field. Lagares is back at the wall, and it's gone. Home run, Jason Hayward. His fourth home run this year. He's 2 for 2, and that's RBI number 12, and it's a 2-0 St. Louis lead.
Remember we talked about Matt Carpenter? It was the same pitch to Hayward that Matt Carpenter got. He tried that tailing fastball, but it was down in the strike zone, and Hayward just buggy whipped that ball.
Like most hitters, when he gets his arms extended,
and you can do that with a ball down more than you can a ball up, because you have to be quicker to reach a high strike than you do a low strike.
We just don't see that a lot from Hayward as Grichuk grounds to third, and the tag is not in time. Grichuk is safe, and we may have an argument here.
Terry Collins on the top step of the Met dugout. Yeah, they'll review this.
I miss the good old-fashioned argument. I miss it.
I remember you saying that last year, and we were going to, Jim Hayes and I were going to go back and dress up as umpires, so you could have an argument with us in the lobby of the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago.
That's right. You guys start bumping each other. I get in the middle of it. Figure out who's paying for coffee. Yeah, I guess it's probably not the way that you should describe it anymore. We may have an argument. No, we may have a review. That's the best way to put it now.
Mm-hmm. And there's something lackluster about this. I mean, I think anybody connected with the game. Number one, the play at third base by Eric Campbell is really overshadowed. It did not appear that Duda, however, got a glove on him. Another look. No, he did. He got him. I thought. You're saying no. Disagreement is healthy, partner.
Well, I'm in between. I see that, and I'm wondering, well, if he did, he barely got him.
You know what got him, I think? The laces that dangle. I'm serious.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
The laces that dangle from the end of the glove. First base mitts are longer, of course, and there are laces that dangle at the end of the gloves.
But if here we are going back and forth, I bet the call stands because
it's got to be conclusive. Right. You're right.
They've showed it a few times here on the video board. They have a huge high definition screen here at the ballpark, and the fans, of course, believe he's out. They're going to show it again. Grichuk and the rest of the ballpark is watching.
This is too long, anyway. You know, the guys, it seems to me that the guys who are responsible for making these calls have to be ready quicker. You can't wait for the play to be reviewed for you to start reviewing the play yourself. You have to anticipate the play. I mean, does that make sense?
My understanding is they do. And where the time...
Well, then why aren't they ready? Why this long?
My understanding is, I'm going to call them safe, is that from when I've talked to various umpires about this, and those that are with the umpires throughout the league and evaluate, is that they get hooked on a couple of different replays and they watch it over and over and over and over. And I think Major League Baseball is going to have to say, look, you watch it once and what you see on that replay is what's going to, it's going to be.
Well, get the best replay first and watch only that.
If he would have called him out, I could have seen that easily.
Yeah, I could have too.
This time Martinez gets the bunt down. Grichuk advances on the sacrifice. He's in scoring position, and it brings in Colton Wong. It is ruled an error, by the way, on Campbell, so that's his fifth error this year. So from the right side, or rather the left side of their infield, they have 14 errors combined with Flores and Campbell. The chance for Colton Wong.
Now Colton Wong back in that one position tonight. Saw how American Pharoah did from that #1 spot at the Preakness, right? He won it again.
I think this is where he's eventually going to wind up.
I do too. I think he's the best leadoff hitter on the Cardinals.
Not named Matt Carpenter?
Right. Well, you can put Carpenter any place.
Yeah.
In the first 5 slots, in my view.
But this is more of the traditional leadoff man. I think that's where we're going because he can run better than Carpenter.
Fastest guy on the club. You utilize his speed a lot more batting out of the one hole.
No balls and 1 strike. 1 out. Randall Grichuk, the runner at second base. Big gap in right center. Wong is 1 for 2 tonight with a run scored. He singled to center and also flied out to right.
You know, they talk about the pace of the game, but you know the pace of the game is slowed down because of concussion syndromes too. There are a lot of umpires who give catchers a lot of extra time, a minute. Do that 5 times a game. That's 5 minutes. Foul tips ajar the mask.
0-2 is up the middle. That's a base hit. Here comes Grichuk. No throw by Lagares. Grichuk slides in safely, and it's 3-0 St. Louis. And a 2-hit night for the Cardinal leadoff man.
American Pharoah.
Colton Wong with his 21st RBI.
He's a run scorer. He can drive in a run. He has power. Valuable man on this ball club is Colton Wong. May remember the frustration last year when he was sent out after that tough start, and he came back with a much more resilient style of play.
And a shorter swing.
Yes.
And it was here in New York. He had a really tough series, then was sent out. Cardinals said Mark Ellis as the backup at the time. Ellis has since retired, and now Wong, the everyday second baseman, and no looking back now. Here's a 1-0 pitch to Matt Carpenter, who's 1 for 2. How about Colton Wong, too, Tim? You look at the RBIs. He's got 21. Peralta now with 21. And they trail 3 back of the man at the plate, Matt Carpenter. A 2-0 Carpenter.
We talked about that horse racing analogy. American Pharaoh out of the 1 hole tonight. Colton Wong will Jose Oquendo going to the whip.
You saw that in the Derby, man.
That's right.
Whoa.
It's a wet whip too.
You bet.
Yeah, in the Derby he had to because of firing line and Dortmund.
Well, the Cardinals want to be aggressive here. Good speed at first with Colton Wong. He does have 3 steals this season.
I read you and I agree with you.
Not running, and the pitch is taken for a ball. 3-1.
2-1, a good time for Wong to run. 3-1, not a good time, because you want a hitter like Carpenter to select the pitch and not have background problems, meaning movement. Concentrate to get a good pitch. Some managers, however, send runners in this spot.
And it's a walk to Carpenter. So that's odd. Colon the walk. And just his 2nd this year. Kia in the driver's seats. That's the first walk he has issued since opening day.
April 6th.
The fewest walks per 9.
Ryan Zimmerman of the Nationals. Unbelievable.
Citi Field in New York. We'll wrap up this series tomorrow. It's a day game, and then off to Kansas City. The Kauffman Stadium will be rocking this weekend. That's always a fun series.
A very good Kansas City ball club. The best bullpen in baseball. The best speed in baseball.
Best team defense, I think, too.
Yeah. Even though the Cardinals, the one thing that they have done consistently well more than any other thing, they have not given up runs because of careless defense. They're as good as any team in the game in making the routine plays defensively.
Holiday is 2 for 2. He singled to right back in the first, to left in the third. 1 out, 2 runners on. Holiday fists it out to center field, and that ball drops. Great job by Wong to read it, and he will score. 4-0 St. Louis. The RBI by Holiday, number 23, and he's 3 for 3 tonight.
The reason Colton Wong broke immediately is he had checked the outfield. That's what good base runners do. After every pitch, you check the depth of the outfielders. And he knew that ball was going to drop. Good read, and he scores easily. See, he didn't even turn to look at the center fielder because he'd already checked him. He knew where he was playing.
So now it's Matt Adams, 0 for 2. Runners at first and second, and a 4-0 St. Louis lead here against Bartolo Colon. Colon coming off his worst outing of the year. 7-0 loss to Milwaukee. Lasted just 5 innings in that start. Gave up 6 runs, and here tonight he's already given up 4. Inside, 2 balls, no strikes. Two-0 pitch, 2-1. This will be Bartolo Colon's last start at age 41. He'll turn 42 on Sunday. 18 wins as a 41-year-old, 4th highest total of wins at this age. Cy Young had 21 at this age. Warren Spahn 19. Roger Clemens had 19 at 41 years of age, and Colon trying to get to 19 with a win tonight. This turns out to be a pretty big pitch in this game right here. 3-1 with a power hitter, and Adams at the plate.
Want to make it right in your wheelhouse. Matt Adams, a good low ball hitter.
The 3-1, and Adams hits it a ton out to deep right field. Big pitch, big city. He goes deep with a 3-run shot. Matt Adams with home run number 4. RBI 16, 17, 18. Nicely done by Big City. 7-0 Cardinals. They start to scurry in the Mets bullpen now.
That pitch was not down, but it was in his wheelhouse on that swing. That ball was hammered.
We noticed in game 1 he was starting to take better at bats.
Aggressive swings this series, absolutely. He was making outs, but he was just missing pitches. Getting under a couple of balls that he drove to right field. They weren't hits, but he was getting there. And the culmination of that hammering of the pelota.
Whoa.
I mean, my gosh.
So 2 home runs in the inning. First by Jason Hayward, and that 3-run shot by Matt Adams. Here's the 0-2 to Johnny Peralta, and it's pulled foul.
Also, guys who hit 3-run home runs smile a lot.
We haven't seen that from Matt in a while, have we?
No.
The strikeout of Johnny Peralta, 3rd tonight for Colon, and it brings in Molina, the 9th man to come to the dish this inning. So 2 home runs in the inning. Hayward on a 3-2 pitch. Adams on a 3-1 pitch. Tim, when a guy is throwing strikes like Colon, and you know he's going to throw strikes, he's not throwing overly hard. Are these comfortable at bats for a hitter? I mean, do you go in there saying, I'm probably going to get a pitch or 2 to hit?
It's a valid question. The answer when we return, I've got to mull that over.
Mull it over. 90 seconds. Now. The STL-KC rivalry to a new level with this rivalry, the I-70 Barbecue Showdown. So two of the top pit masters in the state. Q39's Rob McGee out of Kansas City. Adams Smokehouse's Alex Cupp from St. Louis. It's a barbecue battle. At 6:30 on Toyota Cardinals Live this Friday.
For the drum roll and the answer to your question, can a pitcher throw too many strikes? Yes, in my view, yes. It's as important sometimes to be wild on an 0-2 or 1-2 pitch to miss just off the plate. So control is knowing when to throw balls. Everybody should be a strike thrower to stay ahead, like Martinez right there. But 0-2 counts, 1-2 counts, predictably just off the plate to allow a hitter to swing at a bad ball, like right now.
0-2 on Wilmer Flores. Cardinals with a 7-run lead here in the bottom of the fourth. Real key play in this game, and we were talking about it in the break, but the fact that Grichuk was called safe, may have been out. Replay showed, and I think you and I would have been fine with it either way.
Right.
But it goes in the Cardinals' favor, and it changes the complexion of the inning.
Oh, no question. Had Grichuk been called out, then you've got the pitcher hitting, and if the Cardinals score a lot of runs, they're going to score one fewer run because Grichuk was not involved in the thing. So at the very best, they would have had a 5-run inning instead of a 6-run inning. But with 2 out and nobody on, that absolutely changes the complexion.
Yeah, more than likely. Grichuk then is out. Martinez comes up. You don't assume he's going to make contact or get to first base.
Right.
So now you got 2 outs, nobody on with leadoff man coming up.
Don't see many 5, 6-run innings with 2 out and nobody on.
No. The 3-2. Out to left off the bat of Flores. That'll stay in the ballpark as Holiday is there in front of the track. And Wilmer Flores is 0 for 2. Juan Lagares hit by a pitch back in the second inning. Popped foul and out of play for strike 1. And a base hit to left. Watch every out-of-market game live in high definition with MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widget, and more. Blackout and other restrictions may apply. Visit MLB.TV. Just listening to you go down, take a trip down memory lane on the pregame show with the Cards and Mets. 85 and 87.
Well, I got an assist from you also, and the one assist, I thought John Tudor was 1-6 before he won 20 out of 21 in 1985, and you corrected me and looked it up and said he was 1-7. How about having a year like he did in 1985 and not winning the Cy Young Award?
Because of
Doc Gooden. Yeah.
You got it. Kevin Plawecki. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Speaking of Kansas City, what a year for the Cardinals and what a World Series. Kansas City down 3-1 against Toronto in the playoffs and came back and won 3 in a row, and then down 3-1 to the Cardinals in the World Series and came back and won 3 in a row.
Ground ball could be 2. Carpenter to second. The turn by Wong.
Great turn.
5-4-3 on the double play.
Oh, my gosh. Watch how quickly he gets across the bag, sets his feet, strong throw to first. Nice.
Getting better and better and better.
Yes, he is.
Ooh, that's up and into Hayward. Hayward is homered tonight and also singled. Not for the double play. Bartolo Colon would be out of this game. They have Johnny Monell, who was on deck to pinch hit for him.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those odd moments in the game where the starting pitcher's out of the game for the most part. The double play changes that. He's back out there with, you know, not quite the incentive that he had when he started this game. Trailing by 7. One of the just odd things in the game that happens.
Two-one pitch to Hayward. We're still trying to get on track offensively. Obviously tonight a good night, 2 for 2. Just wonder where those numbers will wind up. He plays a full season, plays healthy. The 3-1. That is ball 4.
I'm not sure Jason heard the call. He thought that may have been a strike, but it was ball 4.
As sharp as Colon has been with the lack of walks, he's walked 2 tonight. And when he got into troubles, when he fell behind, 3-1 on Adams. He went to a 3-ball count on Hayward. So he's not sharp tonight, clearly. That ball is ripped down the left field line. Into the corner it goes, off the bat of Grichuk. Hayward being waved in. Relay to the plate. Not in time. Randall Grichuk with a double and an RBI. 8-0 Cardinals.
I'll tell you, that was an awkward slide for Jason Hayward, and fortunately he's all right. What happened was Plawecki, the catcher, went to his left at the last minute because the throw was errant. And Jason Hayward had to shift from going from a slide to sliding on the inside with his hand. Watch him thinking about sliding right there, and now he's forced to go inside because of the throw. And fortunately, he's all right.
Carlos Martinez, an 8-run St. Louis lead here in the top of 5. RBI number 6 for Randal Grichuk, and his 4th extra base hit in this series. Well, you know, Terry Collins would love to get Cologne through 5 and save the bullpen a little bit if he can.
Yeah, he really wanted that pinch hitter to hit and that number 9 hole to come up that last inning.
Another aspect, and now Terry Collins will double switch of the slide with Jason Hayward. Carlos Martinez needs to be back in a position as a coach, so to speak, as the on-deck man a little bit to help out.
Yeah, but pitchers don't know anything about that. They don't know whether to slide or not anyway, so he might as well stand on deck circle.
Boy, you love pitchers. That's Tim McCarver, everyone. For Terry Collins' club, the AT&T U-verse Rewind. And what's happened here tonight? Jason Hayward with a home run. Matt Adams, the long 3-run shot. John Mabry loving this. The Cardinals loving this. Knocked out Bartolo Colon. He, along with Michael Wacha, as Tim mentioned earlier, the only 6-game winners in the National League. So Johnny Monell is the new catcher. And the new pitcher, Jack Leathersich. It's our Chevy call to the pen. We've seen him appear now in all 3 games. Colton Wong with 2 hits tonight, 2 runs scored. Breaking ball hit up the middle. That's a base hit. Grichuk being waved in. 9-0 St. Louis. 3-hit night for Colton Wong.
Well, you talk about everybody contributing. And Colton Wong, offensively, with 3 hits, is all over the place. This reminds me of that game he played in Washington.
Yeah.
It's his defense, too. On this double play, quick turn. And then the last hit, another RBI. So a run scored, 2 RBIs for the Hawaiian dandy, Colton Wong.
There's Carpenter. By the way, I just received a couple of texts from Adam Wainwright, and he takes exception to what you had to say, Tim.
I would imagine Waino would do that.
He said pitchers know what to do. They always know, and he adds they're also the best athletes on the field. ... most of the time. Adam has a great sense of humor.
Yes, he does.
Looking forward to seeing him back in St. Louis. And, you know, when you think about guys that get injured, and you'd never want to hear about injuries. Never.
No.
But if there's a guy that takes an attitude that I will be back, I'll be better than ever, I'll be a great cheerleader, I'll be a great teammate, it's Adam Wainwright. I'll still go back to the night that
he doesn't have to say that. Everybody knows it anyway.
Yeah. Well, let's see where Carlos Martinez is.
All right. See? At Waino, I rest my case. Hayward's all right, and Martinez wasn't even close.
There are exceptions now. But there's a great shot.
Carlos is a great athlete.
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
Tim, you've got to see the shot. I'll find it for you. But the video of David Freese's home run, and when you guys at Fox are calling that, you have so many different cameras for, as you know, World Series or the bigger games that go in throughout the season. So there's a shot of just the Cardinal dugout, and Adam Wainwright is going berserk. There is nobody cheering more than Adam Wainwright at the ballpark. He's going nuts, and it's hilarious. And I showed him that, and he had a chuckle out of it, too. He said, I don't even remember that. Having some fun tonight. It's 9-0. And by sprucing up your yard. Friday, May 29th. 25,000 fans, 16 and over, will take home a Whitey Herzog Garden Home, and tickets are available at cardinals.com/promotions. The first pitch by Martinez with a 9-run lead is a strike to Johnny Monell. So Monell part of the double switch. Then we'll see Curtis Granderson and Eric Campbell. This has been a very good team. The Mets at home in particular, 16-5 at Citi Field, tied for the best start at home with the 1972 club. Adams with time. Martinez there at the bag. You were talking about Carlos Martinez being a good athlete when he was initially brought into pro ball as shortstop with the Boston Red Sox, and then a little snafu with what he had under his name.
Often shortstops are the best athletes on the team. Not always, but often.
Now you're going to really rile up Adam Wainwright. Phone's going to start shaking here in a second. Wait a minute.
Hold it.
Here's Curtis Granderson. Talking with Curtis before the game, and he has donated $5 million back to a school in Chicago where he is from. Very charitable man. Made a lot of money too, but he makes sure that he does give back. His dad is a school teacher that works with the hearing impaired. Said his mom and dad have been so influential in his career.
Well, you can tell his parents were school teachers. Curtis, a very articulate young man, funny, and is headed for this business when his career's over, if he chooses. Very smart, articulate young man.
He's getting into our business. I'll question how smart he is.
Maybe not. Yeah, right.
There's a 3-1 pitch into center field. Plenty of room. Randall Grichuk is there. The Chevy Fox Tracks. May have chased ball 4.
Maybe.
Eric Campbell is 0 for 2. Carlos with this big cushion. Looks comfortable, free and easy. I mean, that's free and easy, Tim, and then 96. Boom.
You're more inclined to be free and easy when you relax. And with a 9-run lead, he can certainly do that.
And he carves up. Campbell never even swung the bat. Fastball, curveball, fastball. See you later. Cardinals take on the Dodgers. And remember, that is the Whitey Herzog Garden Knoll. And our What's on Tap is Jaime Garcia, Jacob deGrom. deGrom was the Rookie of the Year a season ago. We'll come your way at 11:30. Budweiser What's on Tap. Excited to see Carlos Martinez, what he does tonight, what Jaime Garcia can follow tomorrow.
I asked Jaime before the game, I said, will you go back to the hotel and have your meal as normally you would and get a good night's rest? He said, well, they're kind of leaving it up to me, so I may stay for half the game. And usually that's kind of a rule of thumb with pitchers, is give them the option. If they want to go back, they can. I mean, his work's done for the day.
Reports on Garcia was that velocity was up. And there is a strikeout of Matt Adams, who homered back in the 4th. And I talked to Jaime about that, and he said, I feel about as good as I felt in the last 4 or 5 years. And, you know, I've heard the same things about the gun showing my velocity up. And I do think that that's right. I feel like the ball is coming out of my hand better than it has in a long time, and I do feel like I'm throwing harder than I have in the last couple of years.
That's good news for the Cardinal fans and Cardinals. We love hearing that.
I mean, Tim, when he's right, especially at home,
he can get you out, can't he?
Yeah, I mean, Jaime Garcia, it's like watching a guy throw a wiffle ball. I mean, that thing is dancing. Moves it, spots it, sinks it. Fun to watch. 1 ball, 1 strike on Johnny Peralta.
I was talking about Jaime going back because I was going to lead into a story in this 9-0 ball game. The Milwaukee Braves once did that with Bob Buell. They were staying in Houston, playing the Houston Astros, and they played the next night in San Francisco. So he was a starting pitcher in San Francisco the following night. The team leaving after the game, he had arrived at the morning of that last game in Houston, and he went to Vegas first and arrived as the team was checking into the hotel. At about 6 in the morning, he came over from Vegas. So it's not that some organizations don't do that because pitchers take advantage of it.
Vegas.
From Houston to Vegas.
Did he win?
I don't know.
I don't care about the game. I mean Vegas.
Oh, he won that night against the Giants. He pitched like a 4-hitter or something. I think he won 3-1. Lou Burdett told me that story when the Cardinals traded for him in 1963.
Murphy makes the play. It's a great story.
High fastball popped up. Now, I'll tell you, that team was a fascinating team. It was one of the toughest teams that I've ever seen assembled on a baseball field. They had Eddie Matthews, Johnny Logan, Bill Bruton, Wes Covington. All of them could fight. All of them went out together. Lou Burdett, Del Crandall was a mild-mannered catcher on that team, but Joe Adcock, all of them fought. Not with each other. But that was one team you did not want to stand toe-to-toe with.
We don't see that much anymore, do
No,
we?
you don't. That's right.
Yeah, the benches may clear, but there aren't punches thrown.
No. Rarely.
A few years ago, the Cardinals had a brawl in Cincinnati. Johnny Cueto on the mound.
That was tough, yeah.
Now, that was old-fashioned type of brawl.
Yes, it was.
Jason LaRue was kicked and suffered a concussion. All began with the man at the plate, Yadier Molina, and Brandon Phillips.
Yep.
Phillips had made some comments that Yadi took exception to. Phillips got in the box. Those two talked, and away we went.
Before the first pitch was thrown, right? Before the first pitch was thrown to Brandon Phillips. Cardinals had hit, of course, in the top of the first inning as the fight was in Cincinnati.
Two balls, 2 strikes. With 2 outs and nobody on. You're in the top of the 6th. You wonder if this would be another night to where this could be a situation where Molina stays in with Martinez, and once he exits, then Tony Cruz would come in. Day game tomorrow.
Yes.
You would have to assume.
Yeah, because
with Garcia going, you want Molina back there.
Mike Matheny's already said that Molina is very important to Jaime Garcia.
And a walk to Molina. Hayward on base 3 times tonight. Single to center, a home run back in the 4th, and walked and scored in the 5th. These kind of games, if you're Terry Collins, these are nightmares. Figuring out how to get the bullpen through the 9 innings and then a quick turnaround tomorrow.
Well, Collins confronted with the same problem tonight as he had last night. 10-2 Met win last night, 9-0 tonight.
Talked about key moments in this game, and now it's a 9-run lead. But you go back to when the bases were loaded for the Mets after the error to start the inning by Yadier Molina. Then Granderson a single, a strikeout of Campbell due to the base hit, and with Bartolo Colon running, they didn't score. They didn't take advantage of that situation.
Right. Yeah, in a 9-0 ball game, you don't think one defensive play would mean a lot.
But catch by Grichuk.
Randall Grichuk's catch in center field, a very important play in this game.
Hayward pops it up. Out of play. Well, this series has shown you why the Cardinals get really excited about the way they term it is the high upside of Randall Grichuk. And we've seen that on display in this series. That guy is pumped. Strikeout of Hayward. We are midway through 6. Back in the 3rd, Molina. His battery mate, Carlos Martinez. Those two back to work when we come back. 9-0 St. Louis. St. Louis Union Station Hotel. Choose one of our Cardinals baseball packages and score for your team. Go to HiltonStLouis.com or call area code 314-421-1776. Pete Kozma takes over at shortstop. And the shift here for Lucas Duda. Good changeup.
You notice Carlos has stayed mostly with slider fastball tonight. Mixed in a few changeups, but we talked about it at the onset. Game plan to use his fastball more, and he's done that.
Backhanded by Adams. A flip to Martinez for the first out here in the 6th. So Duda is now 2 for 3. Carlos following up 3 starts in which the starters have gone at least 7. That includes Michael Walker last night, 7 innings and 4 hits.
Pretty good policy right there, backing up your changeups, throwing 2 in a row to Duda to get him.
Walker also is 7th in ERA right now in the National League. Very well could be an all-star.
Cardinals have won all 8 of Walker's starts this year. What's this all about? Winners laugh and tell jokes. Losers say, let's deal.
Wonder what that is all about.
I don't know.
First pitch by Martinez. Two balls, no strikes on Kadire, who is lined out to right, and then was robbed with the bases loaded by Randall Grichuk. The 2-0 can be perceived at times, and I'm not saying that that's the case here, but when you're up 9-0, out there smiling, laughing.
Yeah, you're right.
Sometimes that's taken the wrong way.
Valid point.
And again, I'm not saying that that's the case here.
No.
The 3-2 pitch. Ball 4 to Kadire. So the first walk issued by Martinez, and we have a very special broadcast coming up next Friday night, May 29th. Fox Sports Midwest annual This One's For You telecast as we connect soldiers in Cardinals Nation this year. Fox Sports Midwest will broadcast its Cardinals live pregame and postgame shows live from Fort Leonard Wood. Game will be seen on the American Forces Network as well, 6:30 with that broadcast.
Took basic training in Fort Leonard Wood.
Did you?
1962.
One ball, one strike. We had an interesting conversation with Keith Hernandez again before the game, and we were talking about what hitters do during the game. And I thought Keith brought up a really unique point I had never really thought about, which was, he said, if you look at the newer ballparks and where the dugouts are situated, and you watch the game as a hitter, you don't get the looks that you used to at the older ballparks because the dugouts were closer to home plate, more behind the plate as well, and you got a better view of what the pitcher was trying to do.
And they were closer to home plate too. They were wrapped around toward home plate. Now they start about halfway down both lines, and you can't see a pitcher working like you used to be able to from the old dugouts. These dugouts start about halfway down the third base line for the visitors, the Cardinals, and halfway down the first base line for the Mets.
And what you were saying, which is such a valid point, is that as the game goes on, so you're facing, let's say, Carlos Martinez, now you're going third time through the order. He changes as this game goes on. He makes, adjustments. Watching him as opposed to going back and just continuing to watch video.
Yeah, right.
You have to see how he approaches.
It's a way, I think you can become too technical in your approach to the game and worry about yourself, which is fine, but you're not worried about How's the pitcher pitching other left-handed batters if you're a left-hander? If you're a right-handed hitter, how's he pitching other right-handed hitters? When you go watch video, you're only watching yourself, not the pitcher. And he's the guy with the ball, and he's the guy who's trying to get you out.
Good changeup there by Carlos Martinez. Look at this movement.
Whoa. Changeup right there, about 6 inches outside.
4 strikeouts for the Cardinal right-hander. Wilmer Flores is 0 for 2. Popped out to short, flied out to left, and looks at a strike. They changed the dimensions of this ballpark. Sandy Alderson, the general manager of the Mets, by his metrics, said 27 additional homers would have been hit here at Citi Field last year. With these new dimensions, as Martinez fell off the mound that time with that last delivery.
Yeah, second time that the Mets have moved the fences in over the last 5 years. See, Martinez appears to be all right, but
here's the 0-2. Popped up. Colton Wong. And he's got it. We have played 6. The Cardinals have a lead of 9-0 here at Citi Field in New York in Game 3. Dealers will donate $1,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Big night for Randal Grichuk again. He scored a couple of runs. RBI double. And a diving catch in center that saved a run, maybe even 2. Saw him last night, Sean Gilmartin. Mets bullpen has been pretty good this year, 5th in the major leagues with a 2.60 ERA. The 16th appearance for Gilmartin, who is a Rule 5 pickup.
I think the Rule 5 is still $50,000, right?
I agree. Yeah, I agree that is right.
If you pick him up for $50,000, and then if you don't keep him, you have to send him back for half the price, I believe.
A breaking ball drops in for a strike. No activity in the Cardinals pen. So Grichuk here, Martinez on deck, and then Colton Wong. And you are right, it is $50,000.
And then half the price to get him back, but that's chump change this day and age. but it gives an organization an opportunity to see a minor league player that would otherwise perhaps have no shot at the big leagues.
Siciliani takes over in left field. We saw him get his first major league hit in game 2 last night, an infield hit. Kadire is out. The 0-2. I mentioned how I was visiting with John Mozeliak the other day about some of the best deals that he has made, and this has a chance to turn out to be a pretty good one. As Grichuk rounds to second. David Freese, Fernando Salas going to the Angels. Grichuk coming back, cost control, could be an everyday player at any of the outfield positions.
Oh, sure.
And he has got something that all teams are looking for, which is power. And he's got it.
28 home runs last year in Memphis. Led the minor leagues for the Cardinals. Most home runs by any player.
When the Cardinals got David Freese, it was Jim Edmonds who requested a trade out of St. Louis. So he had various teams he wanted to go to, San Diego being one, closer to his roots in Southern California. And a guy named David Freese comes back the other way. Cardinals had done their research on David, and St. Louis kid. What a deal that was. Great years from Edmonds in St. Louis, Cardinals Hall of Famer, and one night we'll never forget. Baseball history will never forget David Freese. Here's a 1-2 pitch. Strikeout of Martinez.
Well, David Freese was so strong in the World Series. Game-winning hit, MVP in the World Series, MVP in the playoffs, and culminating with the performance on David Letterman, who just so happens to be doing his last show tonight.
Did you ever appear on Letterman?
Once, 1986. I was terrible.
Why?
I was so bad that Bob Costas's wife had this to say about my performance. I liked your socks.
That was the best part of it.
That's it. Bob's wife said, I liked your socks. Now that's a
ringing endorsement, huh?
That's a heap of praise, isn't it?
How was Letterman? Was it fun, though?
It was wonderful. Wonderful. A little nervous.
Did he come backstage beforehand, or you just went out there cold with him?
No, beforehand. Beforehand. Good question. It was wonderful. What a performer, though.
Time to stretch. Sucks. tying into Cardinals baseball. I won't read it verbatim, but you get the idea there. And our friend Keith O'Brien put this together, works in our truck. The assistance of Keith Oberman. He did a lot of work with this.
I'm telling you, connections between David Letterman and the Cardinals.
I like it.
Of course, David, a Midwesterner,
from Indiana,
was discovered as a weatherman in Indiana. Pretty good career, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
My gosh.
I loved Carson.
I did, too.
Letterman
totally
was right
different.
There. Yep.
Totally different. And, of course, just 2 weeks ago, Will Ferrell was Harry Carey. That was wonderful. Harry Carey was in the audience, and Will did his Harry Carey impersonation. And David introduced him. He got up on stage, and just everybody fell out. He was so funny.
Adams over and out of play.
Of course, Will Ferrell from Chicago and a huge Chicago Cub fan. Huge Chicago fan, any sport.
Bill Murray has had 40-plus appearances on Letterman.
I think that's right. Speaking of Chicago.
2-2 has popped up. And with Carson, it was Bob Uecker, I believe, held the record for most appearances.
Over 100 times, yeah.
Now, you were roommates with Uecker.
Uecker and I paid $12 apiece in 1964 at the Bel Air East on Lendell Avenue, right up from Kings Highway. And talk about keeping things loose. Uecker was an avid swimmer. Would swim every day. Honestly.
You know that?
Yeah, honestly.
Did you think he would be as funny as he turned out to be?
I thought then he's the funniest man I ever met, and now he's the funniest man I have ever met 50 years later.
He's hysterical.
Unbelievable.
But the rest of the top 10 list. McGuire, Pujols, LaRusse all appeared. You mentioned David Freese, David Eckstein as well. 11 primetime Emmys, 11 World Series championships. But that on May 22nd, 1992.
I'll tell you, his replacement is pretty funny also.
Yes,
Stephen Colbert. Just a different brand of humor, though, right?
Siciliani pops it foul and out of play. One pitch. Changeup taken low. Cardinals with a left-hander getting loose in the pen. That's Randy Choate. Tails back in for a strike. Mentioned the Cardinals leading by 4.5 over Chicago. They'll play at San Diego later tonight. Team that leads collectively in strikeouts against a strikeout pitcher in Tyson Ross. And the 3-2 from Carlos Martinez. He is taken low. And it's a walk. His second walk allowed. It's been a good night. Everything has come together. The pitching of Carlos Martinez got out of the jam back in the third. The hitting for the Cardinals. A couple of home runs. Hayward and Adams. And what about the defense? Might be the play of the game right there.
Yeah, I agree. And again, to repeat, often in a 9-0 game, you don't talk about a defensive play that was important. Mike Matheny making a move right now for several reasons. Get Martinez out of there, and with no runs given up to his credit.
The hitter will be Johnny Monell. That's our Chevy call to the pen. Randy Choate coming on when we come back. Noted masher at the plate, now taking over on the mound. Wonder how many times he's seen that plate appearance from last night. Everything's accessible now. You know, you go back and look at MLB.com or the at-bat feature. It really was menacing. The bat waggle, you know, he had it down. He had the look.
Yes, he did. Well, the Cardinals glad they were in a position to do that and laugh about things. Outscoring the Mets 19-2 in the last 2 games. They've had a lot to laugh about.
What's interesting, Tim, is that the Cardinals coming into play tonight, one of the best records in baseball at 26-13. And you think about it, the Cardinals have already played in 7 extra inning games.
4-3 in those games.
There's a ground ball, a tag by Wong, and a double play. 7 of the 13 losses, by the way, 1-run losses. Studio Bomberito Sports Update with Jim Hayes. All right, Jimmy, thanks. Looking forward to the postgame show with you and Al.
That's the second time in about 7-8 days that both Harper and Williams have been tossed in the same game.
Saw Bryce Harper against the Cardinals get kicked out of a spring training game. Spring training.
Yeah, come on.
I'd say right now, Carpenter, who's at the plate, Harper, Adrian Gonzalez, granted early. We're 2 months in, but those are your MVP candidates right now, the National League. Big breaking ball swung on and missed. And it's 1 ball and 2 strikes. Second inning of work for Gil Martin. Just joining us, the Cardinals knocked out Bartolo Colon and put up a 6 spot back in the 4th. The 2-2. And a ground ball that's pulled foul. Popped up to the left side. Every Tuesday during the regular season, fans can purchase a special themed ticket to Bud Bash and get an exclusive bobblehead and autographs from the '85 champion Cardinals. So don't miss Todd Worrell. That's May 26th. For a full schedule of players or to purchase tickets, visit cardinals.com/budbash.
Yeah, you love to have a game like this. Of course, you'll take it any time, but you love to have it with the day game the next day because what Mike Matheny is doing is resting his regulars.
Borges lines it to third. It was dropped, and the stretch by Duda stays on the bag for the out.
Boy, good play by Duda and Campbell.
It brings in Matt Adams. He crushed a 3-run homer earlier in the game. That was back in the 6-run 4th. Knowing the speed of Borges, he's got to come up and throw a strike. The stretch there by Duda. Adams, a base hit into right.
You know, in these 3 games, when we talked about Matt Adams more aggressive, he's not feeling for the ball in these 3 games. And that's what happens when a hitter is struggling. Now he's struggling kind of both ways, taking good pitches, swinging it bad, as Matt has been doing. But he's not being cheated now. He may be making outs, but he's not cheated.
I would say a week ago, it was like he was caught in between.
No question.
With a fastball he couldn't catch up. Breaking ball he didn't recognize. He was just in between on everything.
Right.
And now, like you say, he's so much more aggressive and confident with the pitch selection.
Yeah, that's what we were saying about video, too. That video takes away some of that see the ball and hit it. You overanalyze. You're looking for too much. You're thinking too much. There's a lot to see the ball and hit it. Of course, the mind becomes involved and it becomes a mind game, and that's when things don't go so well.
No balls and a strike on Pete Kozma. A play behind Adams at first base, and that pitch in the dirt. It's amazing how when you get good starting pitching, things fall into place, and that's here now from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what the Cardinals have gotten. Their last 4 starts, including tonight.
all year, really. I mean, to your point, last inning, I mean, the Mets have been blown out of one game this year. One.
They had not given up 10 runs until yesterday. That was the first time all year. Adams goes on the 3-2, and Cosma hits it in the air to right field. Granderson makes the catch. We are midway through 8. All St. Louis here in Game 3. It's 9-0. Bud Light reminds fans to stay in the game and drink responsibly. Bud Light. And by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the St. Louis Cardinals. Crowd tonight of 23,726. 23726. The Mazda game summary: 9-0 Cardinals. Martinez pitches into the 7th. Wong a big night, 3 for 5, a couple of RBIs. Colon roughed up in this game with 9 runs, and Lucas Duda, one bright spot for the Mets, 2 for 3. Miguel Sokolovich, right-hander, takes over for the Cardinals. Seen a very good changeup from this right-hander, who did have big league time prior to coming to the Cardinals organization. Not much, but a little.
This will, by the way, be the last night that the Cardinals carry 9 relievers, with Jaime Garcia coming on the list tomorrow. Someone has to go.
This being game number 40 of the Cardinals, and Tim, St. Louis already with 5 relievers with 19 or more appearances in the first 39 games. It's an incredible amount of work for the bullpen. 1 ball and 2 strikes. It's the first time in Cardinals history that's happened.
And one of the few times in Cardinals history they've had 9 relievers too.
Yeah.
It's a trickle-down effect of Wainwright going down thus far.
Little floater out to shallow left. There he is again. Why not? Randall Grichuk with the play.
Monell's probably thinking, I thought he was in. No, here he is in left field with Borges in center and Grichuk. A routine play compared to the one he made earlier.
Tim, think about this defensive alignment the Cardinals have right now in the outfield. I mean, this is some speed and some good arms. Make a case, this is your best defensive outfield,
no question,
you've had in years. There's Eric Campbell. And the 1-0 pitch. It's sharply to short, backhanded by Cosma, settles, and the high throw, but the tag is there. 2 down.
Strong throw, and that's why, even though it was Aaron, Matt Adams had a chance to come off the bag and make the tag.
Lucas Duda 2 for 3. And a strike. Reminder that 6 is a serious number. Get any size coffee, fountain, or frozen drink tomorrow for just 50 cents at your local On the Run. You earned it. One ball, one strike. Sokolovich made a couple of appearances right away when he came up from the minor leagues and picked up a couple of wins. 2-0. Two balls and 2 strikes. Hit into right, Hayward over and up against the sidewall. He makes the play.
How can he be positioned that much to pull against Duda? Wow.
The pen, Carlos Torres to pitch the top of the 9th. For the Mets, 21st appearance. We saw him pitch in Game 1, the 14-inning game won by the Mets. And here is Tony Cruz. It'll be Cruz, Hayward, and Grichuk. Cruz pinch hitting for Yadier Molina, and the first pitch is taken for a ball. We're underway here in the ninth from Citi Field in New York.
The way the games were going before this series started, you never thought that you'd come into New York and see
Murphy wants it.
Never thought you'd come to New York and see Trevor Rosenthal throw one pitch in the first 3 games.
And you didn't think that you'd see the Cardinals, this is no disrespect to their offense, but it's more a compliment to the pitching of the Mets, but put up 10 last night, 9 tonight.
That's right. And an equally tough task tomorrow with DeGrom.
One out, nobody on. Hayward is homered tonight. Been on base 3 times, singled and walked as well. So Terry Garr was on that
Letterman
show with
back
you.
in '86. Terry Garr, who knew absolutely nothing about baseball. Nothing. Letterman kept saying, "Terry, you're a big baseball fan, huh?" And she was as bored as any woman could be.
That's full foul.
Nice socks on that show.
Well, so Letterman has you on.
Right.
Okay. The total idea is to get you on to talk a little baseball.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the questions he asked you? Because he'll ask the off-the-wall questions, too. A squibber left side. I got a promo, and then you can think about it.
I am.
Fox Sports Live gets you caught up on NHL, NBA playoff action. I can go even slower to let you and tonight's MLB games. You can see Fox Sports Live at Fox Sports 1 and simulcast on Fox Sports Midwest.
You know, he's so off the wall. I don't remember a lot of the questions, but he is a big baseball fan. He used to come out to Shea all the time.
That's ripped into center again. How good is this guy? Grichuk thinking 3. Lagares almost came up with it, standing up with a triple. Randall Grichuk. You talk about a ball coming off the bat. Jumps off his bat.
A similar pitch that he hit last night on the first pitch. This ball down in the strike zone, heart of the plate. Second triple in 2 nights for Randall Grichuk.
And Letterman's tall too. What, 6'5", 6'6", something like that?
No.
I thought he was a big guy like that.
No. He's not sick. No.
Well, don't yell at me. I don't know. I don't meet the man. You did. I just saw him on TV.
It's his last show tonight.
Hey, Simmons, Phillips, Molina, and Arenado. Highest percentage of swings put in play. By the way, during the break, as Sokolovich was finishing up his warm-up tosses, we are really into this 9-0 game that we've gone back and had a chance to look at Tim McCarver on the Letterman show. And, we're told that there's Terry Garr right there. We're watching it right now.
Yeah, with a 1986 hairdo. Matter of fact, me too.
I was going to say, hers or yours? Letterman's 6'2", by the way.
6'2". He's not 6'5".
Like I said, man, I'm just watching him on TV. He looks like a tall guy.
3 inches of hair, not anymore.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. Fun stuff. Here's John Mayberry Jr. He's hitting 139, but had a big hit against the Cardinals in Game 1.
You know, Dan, back-to-back games like the Mets have had, or like the Cardinals have had, it gives you a chance to breathe. Gives you a chance to, before you go take the field, look, guys, relax a little bit. The last 2 games will allow you to do that. We don't have to play a 2-1 game every single game of the season. Back-to-back 2-1 games, 1 a loss, 1 a win. Or I should say 1-run games. They lost that 4-3 game on Saturday in extra innings. 10 innings against Detroit. But you know what I mean. I mean, you know, and guys are hitting. They're picking each other up. They're playing great defense. And that's a carryover, and the Mets hope they can do that tomorrow.
Player of the game is Colton Wong, presented by Budweiser. 3 for 5, 3 singles, couple of RBIs, and 2 runs scored. I think the other thing too, Tim, it just takes pressure off the bullpen, and we've been talking a lot about it, and rightfully so. The innings have been piling up for Mike Matheny's club, but their starters are giving them such a good chance here in the last 4 nights to win games by going deep into games. Wilmer Flores for the Mets here in the bottom of the 9th, and a strike. A 1 pitch popped up. This should do it. Matt Carpenter is there. A shutout for the Cardinals, 9-0. And they'll look to make it 3 of 4 tomorrow.